Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another film theory, and, well, you may remember that all this month, for the month of February, all of Film Theory's, videos have had to do with the theme of love. They've been kind of, like, hit or miss whether they truly fit that, that theme, but I am... I was gonna say very concerned, but actually, honestly, it's equal parts very concerned and very interested to see how today's video fits into that topic. This is, the voices made him kill his entire family. Yeah, so, how does that fit into Valentine's Day and love at all? So, yeah. I mean, just looking at the description here, it does say it's about a new analog horror, but it's just called A/S/L. So, yeah. Again, weird. So, I mean, we got some analog horror. It's somehow tangentially related to love, and well, I mean, sometimes. Well, I mean, not sometimes. I mean. Granted, like, sometimes stuff with analog horror can feel a bit played out, but at the same time, like, analog horror is such a vast and wide, I guess, genre of YouTube content that, even if stuff is done similar from time to time, just all the little, like, differences that they do between, like, one series to the next can, oftentimes be very interesting to see. But yeah, I definitely want to see what this one's going to be about, so, yeah, we should probably get this thing started. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video linked to my game theory reaction. And if you like this video or any other video that I put out, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because, all those things help in the algorithm, because I'm hoping to hit 5,000 subscribers sometime this year, hopefully. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
TikTok's most terrifying horror creator has invaded YouTube with a series all about the demons you can find online. But these aren't just internet
More
trolls
demons
or hate
online?
farmers.
Oh god.
No, there's something darker going on here. And the most important thing you need to remember, don't follow that voice downstairs.
Okay.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that's not scared of commitment. And welcome back to the final week of Romance Month. Yeah, in honor of Valentine's Day, I wanted to do a bunch of videos celebrating the season of love. We've gone through the evil exes of Scott Pilgrim, the secret romance in the Book of Bill, and last week predicting the plot of Fantastic Four: First Steps. But today, I wanted to go back to Film Theory's roots and dig into some true analog horror with the work of Spencer Lackey. If you don't know Spencer Lackey, you may have still seen some of the horror films in his huge body of work before. Yeah, he's actually an incredibly prolific creator of short horror and has amassed millions of followers on both TikTok and Instagram, and it's easy to see why. Spencer's work is terrifying and eye-catching, relying on horrific imagery and uncanny effects to really give you the spoops.
Well, I mean, okay, I can quite plainly see why I've never heard of this guy. I don't have either.
Like, for real, this stuff hits all of the right notes. But while these shorts are incredible, what I really wanted to look at today was Spencer's first take on a true long-form analog horror series, a story he calls ASL. If you don't know, outside of American Sign Language, ASL was a common acronym used in chat rooms like AIM and Skype way back in the day. And I'm now realizing that I have to explain what that is.
ASL, okay. Granted, I mean, like, yeah, I've heard of American Sign Language. I've never heard of it in the AOL type context. I guess mainly because I never actually used AOL. I was a little sheltered when I was a little kid when it came to online things. Like, honestly, the most time when I was a little kid, most of the time I spent online before I found YouTube was like the YTV, the website for YTV, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network websites, stuff like that, and, the occasional website for that hosted, like, every Flash game known to man. So, like, I never actually used, like, AOL or Skype, because I don't think we ever actually had dial-up internet, now that I think about it. Yeah, we never had dial-up internet. Like, when we first got a computer, it was, like, a regular internet.
Basically, AIM and Skype were like old school versions of Discord. Anyway, the acronym stood for Age, Sex, Location, and was shorthand for immediately getting to know the basic facts about the stranger you were talking to and what was, appropriate for the conversation. Yeah, if you think the anonymity of modern social media and Reddit threads today is wild, that was nothing compared to the sorts of chat rooms we had back in the day. Anyone or anything could be on the other side of these chat logs, and Spencer took advantage of that here in his series, creating a mystery centered on a relationship that starts on the internet. I know, hold in your gasp. Can you imagine meeting someone through the internet? But in all seriousness, the logline here, the TLDR, a boy's family disappears, but he seems way more concerned about talking to his online girlfriend than getting to the bottom of where they went. And things only get creepier by the day. The boy is plagued by holes in his memory, strange dreams, haunting voices, and of course, plenty of jump scares.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, did you think I was gonna jump scare you there? Well, surprise! I didn't. There's the jump scare. Anyway, of course, this mystery gets dark and may or may not involve a demonic presence haunting both this house and trolling in the chat. So rewind those tapes and log onto your favorite chat rooms, loyal theorists, as we try to find out OMG WTF is ASL.
God, the idea that an online troll might actually be a demon. I mean, the idea that, hell, is always updating their tactics. I mean, yeah, I could see that happening.
So, as always, let's start by going through the plot here to figure out what exactly is going on. Thanks to the title cards of the videos, we know that ASL takes place over 4 days in late November 1997.
Oh god, yeah, no wonder I wouldn't remember. Actually, when did AOL stop doing its thing? Because, again, I was born in 1995. So, like, if this was happening in real life, I would have been, like, 2. Wait, AOL existed until 2017? Really? Wow, okay. That's news to me.
Before a huge portion of you guys were probably born. Oh god, that's the true horror. Our main character, Victor Torrance, an aspiring filmmaker who loves making documentaries, wakes up one morning to find that his family is nowhere to be found. His older brother's door is closed, and his parents' bed appears as if no one has slept in it. And yet, as usual, Victor's mother has seemingly left a thermos of coffee out for him, so Victor's not too worried yet. Well, that is, until he starts hearing things through the house. Now, I know this sounds absolutely terrifying, but don't you worry, Victor has a plan. He's gonna call the police tomorrow. Wait, tomorrow? Dude, are you serious?
Have you never heard of the first 48? Like, if somebody's missing, call the police as quickly as possible.
Well, now. Anyway, I should mention that throughout all of the main story content, there are extra little bits sprinkled in that give us more context to what's happening to Victor and the strange things around the house. For instance, we see a series of messages from one of those old-school AIM-adjacent chat rooms I mentioned earlier between two people named Beelzebubba and Sumasido613.
Ah, okay. Beelzebubba. I can tell which of these is the demon already.
Through context clues, it's clear that Beelzebubba is Victor, while Sumasido is a girl that he's met online.
Okay, never mind. I was completely wrong.
And given their back and forth, Victor is very smitten with this mystery girl, despite the fact that they haven't met IRL yet. And judging by the fact that these chat logs are labeled and categorized by the New Jersey Department of Corrections as part of an ongoing investigation, yeah, we can safely say that things don't turn out well. The next day, Victor wakes up to more of the same. His brother's door is still closed, his parents' bed untouched, and a fresh thermos of coffee waiting for him on the counter. And despite promising to call the police and the fact that his family's been missing for over 24 hours now, Victor still doesn't contact the authorities. Instead, he does what most normal people would and decides to rummage through the footage from his camcorder, though he finds more than he bargained for on one tape. There's a video where he introduces himself, but if you look closely, there's someone peeking into the video from the background. Victor himself, or some weird copy of him. On top of this, Victor is still hearing strange noises throughout the house, and yet Victor still does nothing, and instead he can't stop thinking about his internet girlfriend. For real, dude? Your family is missing and you're definitely being haunted, and you can't stop thinking about her? You need to sort out your priorities, my man. On the third day.
You know, I know they talk about, people getting attached, like, to stuff online more than real life and other things like that, but I mean, And I very much might be, you know, a part of that, you know, with the amount of time I spend on the computer and stuff. But, like, if my family in my house just disappeared one day, yeah, I would start having a panic attack, because mainly, like, I'm one of the first people in the house to wake up, so I'm very much like, oh, okay, it's like, oh, it's in the early morning, put on the coffee for my mom, check in my brother's bedroom to see if he's still alive, you know, that sort of stuff.
Day, Thursday, November 27th, which also just so happened to be that year's Thanksgiving, Victor sits down to give us a vlog update about what's been going on.
My family has been gone for 3 days now. I should have called the police 2 days ago.
Oh, really? You think?
So why, better late than never, why don't you do it now?
Anyway, besides stating the obvious, Victor goes on to describe how he hasn't been able to sleep, but that the previous night he had a particularly vivid nightmare.
I was in my basement. It was pitch black, and it was hot, like a furnace.
He then goes on to describe in great
So
detail
you were in
himself
hell.
going through a series of doors and a sense of fear, knowing that something terrible was waiting for him on the other side. Unfortunately, Victor gets distracted and cuts off the vlog before he can tell us exactly how the dream ends. But that doesn't mean we don't know how the story goes. Later that day, Victor starts looking at more old videotapes and discovers one labeled Nightmare. And it's a shot-for-shot recreation of the nightmare Victor just had and just described to us, complete with a jump scare ending. Ooh, this is also graphic enough that I'm not actually sure if we can actually show it here on YouTube. Now,
You know, I'm curious now, because like they said, he said the creator of the series was originally from like TikTok and stuff like that. And I know just from like people coming over from TikTok that TikTok's like censorship issues are like are pretty harsh, like to the point that like people will say on life or instead of killed or, you know, stuff like that, which I've always found very annoying. So how is something like this allowed on TikTok if he came from there in the first place?
Now, already this would be odd enough. Finding a video of a nightmare you just had is spooky, but what makes this even spookier is that the tape is dated November 27th, 1997, the day we are currently on in this story. And yet, despite this,
okay.
Victor doesn't directly remember seeing this or making this tape. At this point, Victor feels like he's going insane, and he starts messaging his totally real online GF again. In new chat messages, we see that he's starting to freak out and asks her to come over because he feels like he's losing his mind.
I mean, I'd ask, like, how do you know she's even in the same state as you or the same city, let alone? But at this point, if I was in the same room as this guy, I'd get really close, grab him by the scruff of his shirt, and just tell him, in no uncertain terms, call the police. Because honestly, like, he himself has said that, oh, I should have called the police 2 days ago. So what's stopping him from doing it now? I swear, this is one of those things where that one of those things that pulls me out. Because like a lot of the time I find it very easy to get into media when I watch. Like I'm like one of those like perfect audience members that, you know, that movie directors want, you know, their entire theaters filled with. I usually have to think for a while about, you know, the flaws of a movie before I start disliking something. But like something like this, where this is very much classic horror movie like decision making here, where seemingly the protagonist makes every single wrong decision ever for no discernible reason, to the point that even he points out his lack of logic. I can't get behind this. I mean, honestly, probably the jump scares would still get me if I watched this live, but I mean, honestly, this is honestly starting to make me angry.
She agrees and says she'll be there in a couple of hours. I mean, this isn't the police, but at least Victor's calling someone, right? But, well, we never see exactly what happens after this. All of a sudden, we fast forward to the next day, but we don't get another tape from Victor. Instead, we're shown a news report detailing that, in a surprise to no one, Victor's parents and brother are dead. Victor has been taken into custody as the primary suspect based on overwhelming evidence, and officers say they found a bloody paring knife in the sink, which they suspect to be the murder weapon. The family appears to have been dead for several days, and Victor was found huddled and crying over them.
When he noticed us, he frantically motioned towards an empty corner, insisting someone there had murdered his family. He said, "She did this. She lied to me. She this."
Next to Victor was one final VHS tape labeled Sumicido 613, which he said he had no idea where it came from. On it, there's a series of disturbing videos of various monsters, followed by one final chat log between Victor and Sumicido. She reveals that she's in the basement, which is probably why Victor finally went down there. We cut to footage from his camcorder as he makes his way to the basement, as a female voice calls out to him. Cue the scariest jump scare of the series, and yeah, that's it. Classic analog horror stuff, right? But while it's super spoopy, what exactly was going on here? How deep can we dig into this? So, the first thing we should probably talk about, who exactly killed Victor's family? Well, Victor's taking the fall, but Victor also insists that it was Sumicido. So, who's actually to blame?
I mean, given that, this is presumably a demon, I would not hesitate to believe for a second that she possessed his body and then used it to kill his family. So, that way, he doesn't remember, yet he still technically did it, even if he himself was just being used as the murder weapon.
Well, Victor does a lot of things that immediately makes him suspicious. Like, I know horror movie protagonists are often supposed to do some pretty dumb things to keep the story going, but my God! Victor waited days to contact anyone about his family disappearing, to the point that it was Thanksgiving. The holiday famous for spending time with family, and didn't do a gosh darn thing about it. And that's without mentioning that the murder weapon, a bloody paring knife, was found in the kitchen sink, somewhere we know Victor would have seen because he kept going to the kitchen every morning to get his thermos of coffee. Not only would a normal person have called the police a dozen times over at this point, but Victor thinks he should call the police and doesn't. That's not exactly something an innocent person would do. And then there's the massive gaps in his memory. Like, there's an unreliable narrator, and then there's whatever the heck's happening with Victor.
At this point, you're like a step beyond unreliable narrator, and you're at a narrator who is actively getting an ice pick lobotomy as he is narrating the story.
On multiple occasions, Victor has pretty big gaps in his knowledge and memory that should alarm him. And this is especially true of all of the camcorder tapes strewn about the house that he had no recollection of making, despite being the filmmaking nerd in the household. And all of those tapes are weird, creepy, and borderline haunted. If I found any of these tapes randomly in my house, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, let alone think about anything else. So is Victor just lying about Sumicido killing his family and not him? Is this just some elaborate documentary he's making about his descent into insanity and how he actually killed his brother and parents?
I doubt it'd be that simple.
And while I do think it's a valid interpretation, I think that there's something else going on here. I mean, that should be pretty obvious with all of the weird, monstrous imagery going on and the ghostly whispers and demonic howling heard all throughout the house. See, Victor may have killed his parents, but it may not have been the real Victor. And the key to understanding this, the chat log usernames. Let me explain. So, okay, just to head this off, a lot of the usernames created by people the age of these characters might not necessarily be the most thought out. I mean, I knew what I was doing when I created my Glacier Dragon 2002 email when I was 9, but can you really read that much into these? Absolutely. And not only should we, but they hide some really juicy lore.
I mean, I have to say, I never actually made my first email. My parents did. It was originally, when we have Rogers as our, internet provider and stuff like that, so you get the emails with it. And, my parents made my first email, and, I mean, it was super simple, very professional, so, I mean, yeah, that worked. And when it comes to, actual usernames, I don't remember a lot of the usernames that I made before I started going by Fortmaster and everything. I've had this Steam account since... Oh, God, what is it? I've had this Steam account that I still use since 2010. And I called myself Fortmaster on it, and have not changed my name since. So, I mean, anything else I would have used, because obviously I used different things before that, and it's, just completely blank.
First up, Victor's username, Beelzebubba, is
Obviously,
clearly meant to
yeah.
be a riff on the name Beelzebub. If you don't know, Beelzebub is the name of a demon in a lot of Christian belief. To some, it's just another name for Satan, but in other interpretations of demonology, Beelzebub is its own character entirely, a demon in his own right. And not just any demon, but one of the 7 princes of hell, each representing a different one of the 7 deadly sins. So there is some disagreement. Most people believe that Beelzebub represents either envy or gluttony. But why does that matter? Couldn't this play on Beelzebub just be a dark, edgy username of a dark, edgy teenager in this dark, edgy story? Maybe.
Yeah,
That's what I
it.
thought at first too, until you also consider the other username in this chat. So if you do some searching, Sumicido doesn't really mean anything, but myself and a lot of other theorists online realized that this collection of letters is also an anagram. And if you decode the letters, it spells Asmodeus. Now, if you're like me and really into occult lore or sunk a couple hundred hours into Baldur's Gate 3, this name should absolutely be ringing a bell. But Asmodeus is way more than just a D&D character. He's a real-life demon in real-life religions. And in fact, he's often considered king of the demons, one of the lords of the hells, and a representative of the sin of lust. All of a sudden, that seems very relevant to this story about a boy who can't stop thinking about a girl, doesn't it? Also worth noting here that Asmodeus appears in the Old Testament of the Bible in the book of Tobit. In it, Asmodeus is tormenting a woman named Sarah, killing each and every one of her suitors on their wedding night so that she is blamed for their deaths. I mean, come on! This is exactly what Victor is claiming happened here in ASL, just with his family instead of his lovers.
Again, I mean, what was that? What was that I was saying before about, you know, all the different ways different people who make analog horror series can like put this twists on different things just to get their own flavor, stuff like that. I mean, granted, like the last analog series that I watched about, you know, angels and potentially demons was Angel Hair, which, I mean, even that never really had any actual demons in it. It's just been angels and their assistants. But yeah, just like again, like unless it was, you know, specifically pointed out to me like it was just now, I would have never gotten that connection. Though also, is there any connection with the 613? I'm wondering. Is that like a passage in a book somewhere in the Bible or something? Like that would correspond with it? I wonder.
It's just too perfect to say that there isn't a connection between Sumicido and Asmodeus, and that it wasn't intentional. And once this connection to demons got cemented in my head, I couldn't stop seeing demon or devil or hell imagery popping up all over ASL.
Yep.
Like, for instance, in the section of the series where Victor is looking at the Betamax tapes, one of them is titled Self-Portrait, but it's just a video of a fireplace, fire and brimstone, just like hell. Then there's also the fact that in his dream, Victor finds the basement incredibly warm.
I was in my basement.
Like hell!
Pitch black, and it was hot, like a furnace.
Unbearably hot, like a furnace, just like hell. Another smaller connection that's admittedly a bit of a stretch could even be the name of the series itself, ASL. While yes, this is obviously a reference to the term age, sex, location like we already talked about, these letters can also be online slang for as hell. And even if that one is just like a bit too much of a stretch for you, this
As hell? Again, I've never heard of that before. That's like really old slang.
This one is extra crazy. In the final tape discovered near Victor towards the end of the series, there's some spooky audio that sounds a heck of a lot like an exorcism, the removal of a demon from one's body. Yeah, you hear that? It sounds like a demonic voice followed by a man speaking over it, very similar to real-world exorcisms. Clearly, demons are all over this story, and this tells us exactly what happened to Victor and his family.
So, if an exorcism actually happened, like, who did it, and who informed them to do it? Because, as we've already saw, Victor was not in any rush to tell anybody that anything was going on at all.
Obviously, a demon is involved in this story, posing as Sumisido 613, but she's not just any demon. Either she's Asmodeus or one of his minions, and believe it or not, but there's one particular type of demon that fits this bill perfectly.
Succubus?
See, in a lot of modern demonology and in some interpretations of older mythology, Asmodeus is connected to a type of demon known as a succubus.
There
A
you
succubus
go.
or succubi are demons that take human form, typically female, and are said to appear to men to seduce them. How they do this varies from source to source, or interpretation to interpretation. Sometimes they just appear in a man's dreams. Other times they're literal physical entities that will lay with a man.
From what I've heard, and granted, I mean, this is coming from somebody who's not studied demonology anywhere. This is just sort of cultural osmosis that I've absorbed over the years. But, though granted, this might be a pop culture thing, but from what I understood, or at least what I've heard about succubi, the whole thing was like they have sex with a person, most often a guy, to kill them because they feed off like the life energy or whatever it is. And so if they have like actual sex, like physically in the real world, that just outright kills the guy. They take it all, he's left as, you know, a shriveled corpse or whatever. If they do it in the dream, I heard that like that's not deadly per se. That's just sort of, they're just sort of having a snack. Like the guy will wake up tired, but he won't be outright dead. Actually, I mean, is that actual demonology or is that just from a story I read? I'm gonna have to actually look that up.
Some stories, this is fatal for the man as the succubus drains their life force away. In others, they just want to inflict harm and torture their victims. But no matter what version of a succubus we're working with, if Sumisido is a succubus, all of a sudden a whole lot more of this series makes sense. The long-distance relationship, the name
Constantly
ASL, just how
teasing.
distracted and enchanted Victor seemed by Sumisido, why he doesn't call for help, the username being connected to the demon prince of lust, his dreams suddenly taking a demonic turn. Even the weird double of Victor fits. See, though a succubus typically takes the form of a
They can
woman, in a
shapeshift.
lot of stories, they can shapeshift into any form. What we're seeing in this tape wasn't a weird ghost or double of Victor, it was the succubus Sumisido taking his form. Probably just like she did when she killed his parents with that paring knife to make sure he took the fall for it. In the end, the story of ASL is a tragedy. For Victor, a lonely kid living in New Jersey, getting attention from someone like Sumisido must have felt like a godsend. Here's a person you can't stop thinking about, that you've literally dreamed about, and she's giving you the time of day? But slowly she manipulated him, deceived him, and sucked him in. And in the end, she took everything from Victor, luring him down into the basement to take the blame for her own dirty work. All in the name of the demon prince of lust, Asmodeus. Guess that really goes to show, be careful who you trust on the internet. But hey,
Yeah.
that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.
Oh, God. I mean, I've said it before when I've watched other theories of theirs talking about various analog horror series, but, like, the amount of imagination, like, people have to create this stuff is truly fascinating. Like, it is absolutely wonderful. And I mean, the fact that you have an admittedly short series about, you know, a lonely kid being tortured by a succubus online. I mean, yeah, it's sad, you know, especially about him, you know, being framed, going to jail for his family's deaths, and, you know, also just the fact his family's dead. Besides all of that, you know, the whole concept is kind of comical a little bit. Oh, God. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video lead to my game theory reaction, and yeah, we'll hold that out of the way. I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.